Lots of football to discuss, and here to talk about it, fresh off his top 10 finish in Lake Tahoe, the lead MLS analyst for Apple TV, Taylor Twellman, here on the Rich Eisen Show. Top 10, bro. Congratulations.
Thank you, Rich. I was also top 10 for missed putts inside 15 feet, so I'm not sure I'm going to take a lot of pride in the top 10 finish, buddy, but it's all right.
Come on.
My first time doing it.
Dude,
it's good.
Dude, the one time I played there, they didn't invite me back. I literally you may have found my replaced divot from a decade ago at some point, walking past it.
It's
Taylor.
Weird. There is a little bit of there's a plaque right there that says Rich Eisen used a shovel here. It's weird.
Used a shovel here. Exactly. All right. So let's get into it. Obviously, you were on the course yesterday. I'm sure you've caught up on a few things.
All of it.
Okay. Yep. Very good. Let's start with what happened in Miami last night and leading up to the game. Who was in charge there? Best you can tell. Who runs the event that led to such a garbage way for people to get into the stadium?
Buddy, you and I have been living in this country. We've been doing sports a long time. I think Miami has hosted some big events, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Right. So when you have less security than a Hurricanes versus Ball State football game, that tells you that Miami, the Dolphins family, Hard Rock was not in charge. From everything I can gather over the last 24 to 48 hours is that CONCACAF, the U.S. owners of these stadiums, provided the base of what CONMEBOL should have done. They chose not to do that. They chose to take the money, and it's gross. It's real gross. And, Rich, I tweeted this morning because I think a lot of people are misconstruing this. It's the exact same thing that happened against England, Italy in the 2021 European Cup final. I was in the building. They blew down the gates. They came in the middle of the game. Ian Dark and I are sitting there calling the game, and people without tickets were coming into the press box, sitting next to us.
Whoa.
And so what all the organizations need to do here, that was UEFA, and initially they came out and blamed the fans, and then UEFA studied it, and they blamed Wembley and the FA. I think the same thing's going to happen here. I do not think this is on anyone within the United States. I think this is CONMEBOL. They chose money over safety, and that is that's a real black eye on that organization because they're going to have to own up to it in the next 12 months here.
All right, two things to follow up on. First one, so you're sitting there with Ian Dark on live television, and fans are just strolling into the press box taking a seat? Is that real?
Rich, yes, Rich, no joke. It's the scariest I've ever felt in an environment. And obviously, all of us in the sports media world, we've read the horror stories of the hooligans back in the 80s and those awful stories, Hillsborough being one of those. Point being is that was 5 days after the mask mandate was released, and they were not prepared for just 20,000 people with no tickets bum rushing the stadium. And I looked at Ian, and I would elbow him here occasionally, and I'm pointing this way. It was as uncomfortable as I've ever felt the stadium as a player. And I've been to Boca versus River in Argentina. This was very uncomfortable. So a lot of people throwing stones at South America. I just want to remind people it happened in Europe as well.
Yeah, because that reading up on everything in advance of today's show, that I was reading in South America, there's a lot of fans who show up unticketed, and thus the organizers of last night's event should have realized that in advance. And so you're saying essentially this is not a bellwether for what's going to happen during the World Cup in a couple years?
No chance. One, FIFA's already seen this, and their security is exponentially better than anything that CONMEBOL will have done in their past and in the future. Two, I think this helps the United States, Mexico, and Canada for the World Cup because they don't want to have that luck again. But anyone saying the United States can't host a World Cup, Rich, they've hosted the biggest events in the world. So don't tell me that the United States can't host this. This was 100% the United States owners, the United States stadium, the infrastructure. They all offered the proper infrastructure for this tournament. CONMEBOL chose less than what they did in 2016 when Copa America Centenario was in the exact same country, they didn't have any of this. They chose to take the money. They chose to take the bigger paycheck. And unfortunately, I think they're going to have to write a bigger check to pay for some of the damages.
Taylor Twellman here on the Rich Eisen Show. I don't know if your sources are impeccable, and plus obviously
debatable.
They're impeccable. Where have you been able to determine if anybody's gotten Messi some ice for his ankle, Taylor?
I've sent him a game ready. I've sent him a cold plunge. I've sent him anything he needs, and I will be flying this evening to make sure that he has a cold 6-pack of Michelob Ultra right there for him so he can enjoy. Truthfully, Rich, that ankle looks awful. That ankle looks really bad. And to see the passion in his face, the tears coming out, that is a serious injury. I think Inter Miami are trying to have their fingers crossed for the rest of the season here.
Yeah, obviously this is going to be a few weaker, but let's discuss that moment where Messi comes off the pitch. And he must know it's serious, and he's got to be sitting here thinking, I guess this is his Copa America final moment, right, Taylor? Was that what's going through his head there?
I think so. I do. I also think what's in his head is he's trying to do everything he can to get ready for the 26 World Cup. I know publicly he said he's 50-50. I'm telling you from following him, watching him closely, he will play in that World Cup if he's healthy. And I think that's all the mindset of that. This is the tail end of his career. He wants to play in that World Cup. He wants to be 100% fit. He also wants to win an MLS Cup with Inter Miami in the moment. He wants to bring trophies in MLS the way David Beckham and Robbie Keane did for the Galaxy. So I just love the passion for him. He's done everything, Rich. And yet he's still worried about this moment and what he's doing for his club team and for his country. I've never seen him react that way. And I've seen some nasty challenges on Lionel Messi. I have never seen him react that way. And that's why I think that right ankle, it's a serious injury.
Well, I guess he's limping off into the sunset with Di Maria, right? For the last time on the same pitch wearing that.
That's why you're so good at what you do. Well done.
Thank you, sir. And my God, just watching Di Maria play deep into that contest last night and then to come off when it's, well, I shouldn't say it's obvious. Anything can happen, but it looked like this was going to be the end of the match because of the late goal that that Argentina scored, with Martinez just being an absolute goal-scoring machine for that side. What was your sense of the actual soccer that we saw last night in Miami?
It's amazing. It's amazing to think that you can bring off the leading goal scorer of the tournament off the bench. I mean, it's remarkable. Rich, honestly, this is where I think your fan base would appreciate this. I get asked millions of times during this week in Tahoe from all the biggest names in American sports, why can't the U.S. men's national team compete? Watch Argentina, Columbia. Argentina brought 3 world-class superstars in their respective positions off the bench,
deep into the contest too. Deep into the
so
contest.
Rich, until you get to that point, you're still behind the 8 ball a little bit when you're playing against the Argentinas of the world. I think for anyone that watched the game last night, it was as contested as any final you'll have. That is very South American. It's going to be a bloodbath. You've got to be physically up for the challenge, but mentally composed, that you don't get caught up in as I like to say, some of the baby games off the ball. But when I look at that team, Argentina, if Di Maria was healthy for the biggest finals in 14, in 16, and in 18, we're talking about a completely different history for Lionel Messi. Because if Di Maria is completely healthy, I think they win the 14 World Cup. We're talking about 2, 3, 4, 5 major trophies. He is the Robin to Messi's Batman. He was wonderful last night, and he's 36.
Few minutes left with Taylor Twellman here on the Rich Eisen Show. You just mentioned how you just saw how the Argentine national team, the Argentines, were able to just bring so many studs off the bench deep into the contest, and that is an idea as to how difficult things might be for the U.S. team to catch up. What about Spain throwing a 17-year-old kid out there, barely 2 days into being 17? How remarkable is Yamal, Taylor? Can you walk me through how we can see this? I mean, my son is about to turn 16, and my wife and I are wondering how we're going to give him a learner's permit. You know what I mean? For real, it's crazy.
Rich, I think about when I was 16, calling a girl's house to try to talk to a girl, and the older brother, the dad answers, and I'm just like, kind of need to change my underwear, and this guy's playing in the European Cup final. So it's very difficult to try to grasp. Here's what I'll say, and I believe in positive energy and manifestation.
Sure.
To think that he and his parents took him to Barcelona, took a picture with Lionel Messi when he was 4 months old, and that picture's been floating around the internet, and his parents saying to Messi and anyone that want to listen, my son's going to play for Barcelona one day. And I love that story more than anything. And the reason why is because when you watch him play, he is not overwhelmed. He is completely in the moment. He's completely in the essence of the competition. He's scoring an unbelievable goal in the semifinal. And then the final comes, and he's completely content on who he is. He's 17. He recently just 16 scoring goals. So the point being, Rich, Spain, the last 20 years, 3 European championships, a World Cup. They've won 10 of the last 20 Champions Leagues. They've won a Women's World Cup. And I'd argue they've completely changed the way you've looked at the game. I'm not going to sit here and pump my chest up, but I am going to tell you, before the tournament started, I chose Spain. And the biggest reason why is that golden generation was done. And so these 17-year-old kids that grew up watching arguably the greatest national team of the world, 2008 to 2012, Spanish national team that won 2 Euros and a World Cup, they were all gone. So now they had a chip on their shoulder, but they're playing different. Yamal's different. He's got a verticality to his game. They're not 1,000 passes to death, knocking it around, tiki-taka. They can play a little bit more explosive. They were as good of a team as I've watched, and I'm not sure you're ever going to see another team go to Euros, play 7 games, and win all 7.
What are the English thinking today?
This is just what the English do, isn't it? Isn't it?
Well, I mean, guess they would have lost. They would have lost in penalty kicks if you really want to go the ultimate here, as opposed to giving up a late goal after getting the equalizer out of nowhere. But you know,
Rich, it's a great question. Think about it. Wayne Rooney, John Terry, Frank Lampard, Steven Gerrard, that Paul Scholes, that golden generation, they never made a final. What is this? 3 finals out of the last 4 major tournaments, or at least some, whatever it is. Gareth Southgate has been criticized for being boring. I've been one of those, but he's been effective. But that picture you're showing right there, Harry Kane's been in some massive games. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 6 finals in his career. 0 goals, 0 assists. He has more yellow cards than shots on goal. And that's difficult because any goal scorer will tell you, me being one of them, when you get to that game, do you have the extra 5%? 10% that moment. I think Harry Kane has been a fantastic player, but I think the English media is always going to look at him and say, in the biggest games, where was he? And I think that's unfortunate, but I think that's also part of the Gareth Southgate system of kind of playing a little reserved versus trying to blow the doors off the thing and trying to win the game 3-2 or 2-1.
I'd love to see Argentina play Spain now, but that's called a World Cup, right? So what if they did play one another, and let's say Messi's ankle didn't look like it had a softball in the middle of it, who would win?
I like Spain. I just think you give them an extra 18 months before this World Cup comes, buddy. I just listen, if they played tomorrow and everyone was fit, I think Argentina would try to make it a very ugly game. And I think it's difficult. Spain technically is just superior to any other team in the world, and they understand their identity. Make no mistake about it. They've got a couple weaknesses. Defending in transitions, one of them, where Argentina thrives. I just love the way Spain played. Again, 7 Euro games. They won all 7. There's no draws in there. There's no slippy, weird moments. They were definitive, and they blew the doors off the thing. And I just think in 2 years from now, they could come to the United States and win the World Cup.
Yeah, Yamal might be shaving by then. Do you want to take your 2 cents before I let you go on the U.S. men's national team firing Greg Berhalter and your thoughts on that and what should happen next?
I'm glad there was a sign of accountability, Rich. I think you got to send it to your fans. You got to send it to your players. But most importantly, you got to send it to the sponsors and to the people that are going to be behind this thing in 18, 20 months when the World Cup is here. My concern is, what do you do now? And I've said this, and I'm going to stay on this. You go get the biggest, most experienced name you can get right now. You offer him 20 months. I don't need you to worry about anything other than the World Cup. Get this group of players ready to play, and we will worry about 5, 10, 15 years down the road. That's got to be an experienced name. It's got to be someone from the international cloth. It cannot be a United States American, because right now, in the United States American, I don't have anyone that has the international experience managing the game. I'm not talking about players. I'm talking about managing the game. I also want my young American coaches right now, Rich, that I think have a real shot at doing this. Allow them to grow. Steve Cherundolo's barely been a manager for 3 years. Pat Noonan's barely been a manager for 3 years. Let them grow. Give them time to really figure out who they are. But go get a big name. And the other one, Rich, I want someone, when the light's on, the camera's on, they take the attention away from this golden generation of players. You know what I mean? Take the attention away from Pulisic, McKennie, Adams, and all these guys, and put the attention on them and really get the guys ready to go in 20 months. And I think they can, but I'm still holding out that they're not going to be able to pull off the biggest name they can on the international market.
Well, Klopp already said no, right? So who would you, if or you just gotta? I'm just looking.
I would go down the line.
I
would go down the line. I would say, okay, Klopp, are you 100% no? Because if it's 95% and you want to come in January of 2025, then I can make that work. If it's no, it's no. I'm calling Jose Mourinho. What is it? What do you want to do? Because Jose Mourinho in Turkey has an out clause January 1, 2025. I'm talking to everybody. And Rich, I've taken some criticism from U.S. soccer fans on this, but I still believe, talk to 100 people if you need to. Just talk to people, see who they are. But you can't waste 14 months the way you did after the 22 World Cup to then rehire Greg Berhalter. This process should have been done then. So now you're here. You gotta expedite it. You got to be quick. But go talk to everybody. There's one name that I've said from the beginning that has a real interest in this, and that's Patrick Vieira. He won a World Cup as a player. He loves the American player, but he also walks into that room, and every single player's tail is going to be between their legs because he doesn't hold back on anyone. So if that's the guy I got to go get it. But I'm talking to everybody, and I'm talking to everybody within 48 hours.
As close to Roy Kent as you can get is what it sounds like right there. You know,
call Roy, see what he's doing.
I don't know if
you know what, Rich, you want a good one?
Yeah,
they should just bring back as an interim coach Bill Belichick. Have him stand on the sideline, throw a headset on, and just to piss off everybody else in the international world and say, "Here's what we're doing."
You just gave Chris. You're so happy. He thinks
that last week.
He and Saban should be co-head coaches like Nick and Bill Lasso.
Guaranteed.
Just
World
do
Cup.
it.
You know,
would you imagine they did the 3 friendlies, they win all 3 friendlies, 9-0 combined score,
yes.
And all they did was sit on the headset and talk to each other on the sideline.
Matt Patricia would be awesome too.
Get him away. No. You guys, no. That pencil behind the ear. What are you writing down? Get rid of that now.
He's in the Northeast. He knows the whole drill for sure.
No, miss me with Patricia, dude.
Next up, LAFC Real Salt Lake Wednesday night. Both teams tied atop the Western Conference standings. You got that for Apple TV. You're back in the mix. Ready to go?
Yep, I'm leaving Tahoe, dropping the kids off in Boston, taking the red eye, and then going right back to LA. It should be a good one.
Awesome,
big
man. It's absolutely. Thanks for the time here. And again, congrats. That is no slouch, man, finishing 8th at this tournament. I don't know if people told you, but I was watching the final holes, and the announcers were saying, you've got the stuff to win this thing one day. They literally said that.
I do, but that means Marty Fish has to not show up. If Marty doesn't show up, Rich, I got a shot.
I hear you, man. He did look great. Taylor, thanks for the time. Safe flight crisscrossing the country. Always love your passion, your knowledge, and friendship. Thanks, sir.
Thanks, brother, man.
That's
good seeing you.
Taylor Twellman. Everybody check him out on Apple TV Wednesday night. LAFC and Real Salt Lake back at it with the MLS season right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Catch The Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern for free.